episode 7 of Lost and Loud, the podcast. I sound like a horse, my apologies. I got sick 2 weeks ago, okay? And I am still recovering from a cough, but I'm finally at the point where I can talk for a couple minutes, actually, without coughing. Whereas before, it was literally every word I said coughing fit. So I want to talk about a little life update before we get into the main topic of today's talk show. There was a crazy life update that I want to give you guys. As you guys know, that in these podcast episodes, I've been talking about this like surgery I was getting, okay? And it was actually to remove like a polyp in my uterus and stuff that gave me really severe symptoms. And if you want to know more details about that, you can go check it out on my Patreon. I talk about it in a lot of in-depth. And basically what happened is 2 weeks ago, okay, I literally went to the hospital for my procedure, okay? I stripped, I got naked, I wore that hospital gown, okay? They put the IV in me, the bruise is finally gone after 2 weeks, okay? I'm feeling like I'm gonna pass out because I haven't drinking water in like 12 hours because my anxiety, instead of not drinking water past midnight, I decided not to drink water past 6 p.m. So I was extremely dehydrated. And so I'm like getting ready, like I was mentally preparing for the next like 2 weeks of my life to not be able to do anything, to worry about getting like my results and like worrying about getting a blood clot after surgery, all these things. Only, okay, for minutes before I am put under anesthesia, my surgeon comes running to me being like, Tanya, I have good and bad news. My heart drops in my ass. I was like, what? I was so scared and literally petrified. I'm like, they already gave me that like anti-acid reflux or something, which makes you less likely to throw up while you're under anesthesia. And it's like this really bitter, sweet, and salty drink. And I literally drank that. They were walking me to the freaking OR, and she comes running to me. She's like, your polyp is gone. You don't need surgery anymore. And I was like, huh? I was like, what's the bad news? And she's like, that we wasted your time today. And I was like, I, in that moment, felt so many freaking emotions. It was insane. And ultimately, as frustrating as it was that like they didn't, because basically I had to get some scans done a couple days before to ensure everything was okay. And I had been calling the office to make sure that like my surgeon looked at my results. And then when surgery day came, it was like, okay, I'm assuming we're going through with this because even though she didn't get back to me about the results, I assume she at least knows, you know, like, who cares telling me them as long as the doctor knows? That wasn't the case. Apparently she got them just that day, and that could have been a whole disaster, but luckily it was avoided. So your girl no longer needed surgery. I literally just ended up going home that day being like, what is my life? What is this thing that just happened to me? Literally 2 days later, I ended up being so sick that I've been sick for 2 weeks. So the universe or whoever was looking out for me that day, because if I had been sick recovering from surgery, can you imagine? I would have like that, my stitches would have popped with how hard I was coughing. Like I got a fever 2 days later. I would have thought that fever was because of surgery, not because I was sick. So many things were happening all at once. But luckily, things are okay. And I don't have to worry about it anymore, at least for now. I have a follow-up with her. But that was kind of a crazy life story that happened recently. But more importantly, in those 2 weeks since I last talked about the Love is Blind episodes, the one I talked about was the one before the altar episode. So since my last podcast that I filmed, the altar episodes dropped, as well as the reunion. The season 6 Love is Blind reunion dropped, and it was insane. Like, did you guys see? I don't even know where to begin. Like, Jimmy broke up with Chelsea. Honestly, with how things were going, I have something in my eye, I'm sorry. But honestly, with how things were going, kind of expected it. You know, the relationship just didn't seem like it was doing what it needed to. Like, they just kept fighting. Ultimately, we don't know like everything that happens off camera, right? Like, there's so much that happens. We only see like a glimpse of a couple minutes into their entire day, but just from the vibes. And don't get me wrong, like that was filmed over a year ago. I'm sure Chelsea and Jimmy both have worked on themselves a lot since then. You know, people are capable of change. People can change for the better. People can also change for the worse. but people can change for the better. And definitely with how like Chelsea's handled herself on social media and stuff, I can definitely see that she's worked on that. And I'm pretty proud of her, to be honest, and how she handles herself at their reunion. Like, just because she was feeling insecure doesn't mean she was a bad person or Jimmy was a bad person. I feel like neither of them was ready to date each other. The part that gets me so shook is like how I basically predicted these things. I was like, Clay and Adi, they're gonna make it to the altar, but I don't think it's gonna work. Like, someone's gonna say no. And I had a feeling Adi was gonna say yes, and she did. And then Jimmy and Chelsea, I was like, yeah, they're probably not gonna work out. Like, I don't see them going to the actual altar. And if they did, Chelsea would say yes, and Jimmy would say no. And then the whole Sarah, Ann, and Jeremy thing, okay? I was like, they're definitely only staying together to prove to everyone that they're like soulmates and that all this drama was worth it because we're together. Give it a couple years at max. Another year or two. Probably not going to work out. If they do end up being married for 80 years, all power to them. But I definitely think it's like a pity dating thing right now where they're just staying together because the world hates them and they want to prove that they did not stir up all this shit for nothing. So that was a summary of everything with the altars, right? You can tell it's a huge thing also seeing how Jeremy and Sarah Ann, despite doing all that, didn't make it to the altar. So you can tell that's probably not gonna work. Because usually the couples that say I do at the altar last. Because they're willing to make that commitment to one another. Sorry, my voice is dying. Let's talk about the freaking reunion. I was so shook. I'm a little, like, shocked that they spent so much time talking about Jeremy and Sarah Ann. Like, we already knew that all this drama was happening with them. No one really cares. We wanted to know about Adi and Clay, and we wanted to know about Jimmy and Chelsea. Let's be freaking for real. Adi is literally such a strong woman. The way she was like, I'm not dating you after this. You literally had me on a platter served to you. Like, she was in a wedding gown, walking down the aisle to you. All you had to say was the word yes. Now, do I appreciate Clay's honesty with being like, you know what, like, you need someone that's ready for marriage. I don't think I am. Now, that honesty comes with humiliating his lover on TV and taking away her first wedding from her, essentially. Like, Adi will always remember that the first time she was engaged, her partner said no to her at the altar. Like, he took that away from her. He should have done what Jimmy did with Chelsea. Whether there's like a fee with like the contract or whatever, who cares? I understand that you start the show on a reality show, that you're like, oh yeah, if I do get married, like, I am forced to go to the altar. But when you actually form that emotional connection with someone that you actually love, that you've gotten to know, it stops becoming a show, I feel like. Because this isn't just a show about like seeing how hot each other are, like perfect match or too hot to handle, and just sleeping together the entire week. It's about building a deep emotional bond to someone. And that doesn't just end after you see each other for the first time. A lot of the time it gets enhanced because now you have that physical connection. And the thing is that if you truly loved and respected your partner, you would not ever want to take that day away from them in front of their friends or family, or waste their mother's time or their sister's time or their friend's time. Like, you would have a private conversation, whether it's heated or not. Out of respect, you let them know, listen, we're not doing this. Whether we have to pay a fee or not, I respect you and love you so much that I need you to know that I can't get married yet. I know I agreed to this at the beginning of the show, but I just can't do it. And that is what a respectable person should do. I still respect that Clay didn't just say yes and kind of trap Adi into a failed marriage with him where she would feel like she has to fix this guy. And I feel like if they ended up staying together, she would feel more of a mother to him rather than a partner. Because Clay still has a lot of healing to do, and that's okay. I feel like people are making Clay out to be the villain, but let's be real. Jeremy is the villain. Clay is just a very hurt, traumatized man that needs sympathy and empathy and someone that understands him and talks with him, and a lot of therapy. And he did say he's been going to therapy. And unfortunately, like, as a man in today's society, right? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, Clay's a grown man, he should be able to handle his emotions. It's like, dude, like, men aren't allowed to experience their emotions a lot of the time. So as a child, he literally was taken on trips with his father to cheat on his mom. So his view of relationships are so warped. Now, as an adult, do you have the ability, especially if you have money, to be able to take care of those things with therapy and medication, all those things? Yeah. But it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to take these steps and to actually try and solve what's wrong. So I don't really fault him for that, but I do think it was kind of unnecessary to actually take it to the altar if he knew he was going to say no. He said that, like, in that moment, I didn't know what I was going to say. The fact that you didn't know what you were going to say means it's not a yes. If your answer is not a hell yeah, it is a hell no. I want you all to remember that. Let me repeat. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. That can go with anything in your life. Relationships, friendships, even just consent conversations, if we're going to bring that up. Like, if it's not a hell yeah, let's do it. Take it as a no. Like Johnny and Amy. You can tell they were hell yeahs. Okay? Jimmy and Chelsea. You can tell they weren't hell yeahs, therefore it's a hell no. It's so blatantly obvious. Like, you can tell with Zach and Irina, it was not a hell yes, therefore it was a hell no. You can tell with, oh my god, I forget the season 1 couple that made it. They're like one of the most known couples to this day, but you could tell it was a hell yeah. It's very, especially in such fast-paced, rapid worlds like Love is Blind, it's very important to be 100% sure. If you are not 100% sure, don't freaking do it. It's as simple as that. So, with that being said, okay, would have loved to see more Jimmy and Chelsea in the reunion. I'm pretty sure that's what brought in most of the viewers, you know, after the breakup, wanting to know if they started dating after, wanting to know if they're friends, but we never really got those questions answered. However, oh my gosh, the frickin' thing with Trevor, I actually started feeling bad for the guy. As shitty as what he did was, the way he was humiliated on live TV, dude, in front of a studio audience. He was literally just sitting there like, he got his words sucked out of him. Speechless. I literally started feeling bad. He went in with a girlfriend being like, I'm so toxic, like I'm toxic and I know that, and that's why I came here to fix it. I'm telling you guys right now, like I said in our last episode, that if he would have gotten picked by Chelsea, he would have purposely went to the altar and said no on purpose. What was that guy's name? And like, was it season 2 or season 3? He had this beautiful fiance that said yes, and then he was like, no. And her family like attacked him and was like, how could you do this to her? He's like, well, I'm not gonna get married if I don't think I should. Like, it's disrespectful to her. But it's like, then he went on Perfect Match after, and that was definitely Trevor's plan. You could frickin' tell. He was playing that sweet soft boy the whole time. And we all frickin' fell for it. We all loved him. And then the truth came out. And he was speechless. I honestly think that he didn't think they'd really call him out like that and show receipts and stuff. I think maybe they were just gonna be like, Trevor, like, what do you have to say for yourself? They didn't accuse him of being on there for fame. And like Vanessa Lachey started being like, did you do this to advance your career? And then he was like, what career? Oh my God. And then he's like, can I leave? He literally was like, can I leave? Me at every social gathering. And then Nick Lachey after was like, by the way, you said you wanted to leave. You can go. That was insane. Out of all the seasons of Love is Blind I've watched, that was both my least favorite reunion episode, because they really only talked about drama, not actual productive conversations about the relationships. It was just like Sarah Ann and Jess and Laura fighting, whereas I personally didn't want to see the drama. I wanted to know more about the actual relationships and how they were doing, since the whole premise of the show is about finding a partner, not drama. Like, this isn't too hot to handle, you know what I mean? Where you have rules that you break and stuff. It's literally just about finding love. It's not like The Bachelor where you have drama because one guy is dating 25 women. It's just a one-on-one thing, and I wanted to know more about the relationships. But it was also the most dramatic finale I've ever seen. Because I first started watching Love is Blind, starting with season 6. So a couple episodes into season 6, before the new episodes dropped, I binged all the other seasons. So all this stuff is so fresh in my mind about the different episodes and the different reunion episodes and how they were handled. And then it was announced, but oh my gosh, the way Sarah Ann and Laura and Jess were all calling each other pick-me girls, I was like, oh, this is so sad. It's crazy because all the women are fighting each other when everybody should be fighting Jeremy. Jeremy was the problem. As much as Sarah Ann is responsible for her own actions with messaging him, he opened it, then responded, and proceeded to go hang out with her. He is the villain, okay? And a lot of people are forgetting that and are going after Sarah Ann. Jeremy's just like doing his own thing. He's just watching the girls go back and forth. He's sitting here all silent, like, I'm just gonna sit here silent so they all forget I'm here. But let's stop getting mad at the women and let's start holding these men accountable. Because it's so frustrating that watching all the women fight each other, yet the man that actually did the problem was right there, untouched, chilling. You cannot control what other people do, okay? Let's say I'm married and I go into a grocery store, okay? And another man comes up to me and hits on me while I'm alone. I can't control that. My husband can't get mad at me for a guy hitting on me when I'm just going to buy groceries at the store, okay? What changes is if I allow that to happen and I'm like flirting back and I start talking to him and allowing him in my space, allowing him to get to know me, then that's wrong, okay? Then your husband or boyfriend or whomever have every right to be upset because you're now allowing them to infiltrate and get to know you on a personal level. So whether Sarah Ann messaged Jeremy or not, doesn't matter. It was up to Jeremy to block that, set a boundary, and say no, because he was morally obligated to Laura. But that just goes to show that he was not a good partner. And she dodged a bullet. So it's actually a good thing it happened, or else Laura would have been married to the guy. Cheers to that. The universe was looking out for her. And I feel like the universe was looking out for 80 as well. I do think that a lot of the people this season are genuinely good people. I love Johnny and Amy so much. Like, I want what they have. Their wedding had me sobbing. I was sobbing in my bed in the middle of the night, watching how she walked down the aisle with her brother. Her brother that she spoke about with Johnny, saying how, like, would you be okay if he, like, lived with us one day? I love him so much. I care about him. Johnny was like, of course. Like, I'm gonna cry now. And watching them walk down the aisle together and her dad and being like, take care of her. Oh my gosh. And Amy was literally crying, walking down the aisle. Like, it had me so emotional. And I'm just really glad that this season we at least still had a couple that took it seriously, that committed to one another, and that we saw a happy ending with. That is what this show is about. There are so many shows that are about drama and fighting and cheating and all this stuff that let this one be about the good. Let us celebrate the good. That's why this reunion I felt so 50-50 about. Because yeah, it was entertaining, of course, but it really took away the purpose of the show. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about this week. The Love is Blind Season 6 finale / reunion. And let me know if you guys watched the show. Oh, I'm so sad it's over. I wish there was a new season every week. I love the concept of it. I'm definitely excited for the next season to come out. And I'd love to hear your opinions on the show, on the reunion. Which couple was your favorite? Mine was Johnny and Amy, and then Chelsea and Jimmy. Okay? I really wish Chelsea and Jimmy worked out, but I knew it wasn't because they were just clashing all the time. But I'd love to hear your opinions down below. If you want to support the podcast to keep it going, make sure you guys go join my Patreon. If you haven't, you can get the podcast episodes a week early as a little early access treat. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next week for episode 8 of Lost and Loud.